right, what's up, everyone? This is Nick Atkin on South China Morning Post, MMA in Hong Kong. We're back with Thanh Le, the featherweight champion of the world, and Garry Tonon for another face-off. We did this like 10 months ago, but the fights doesn't happen yet because of various various things have got in the way. So we're back. It was so much fun. We thought we'd do it again. But yeah, Thanh, how are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And Garry, how are you doing?
Yeah, great, man. Yeah, good. Just finished up training.
And you got your Wi-Fi issues sorted out. I heard you were getting...
Technically, no. I'm at Gordon's house right now because he's the only one with internet at the moment. So, I mean, short of doing this at a Starbucks, that was the best. So.
All right. Well, I hope you get that sorted soon. But yeah, Garry, I was going to ask you what's going on. Where are you training now? Because I know there's been some upheaval. You were in Puerto Rico last time we did this. Where are you now?
Yeah, man. So I was in Puerto Rico. I did a little bit of training out in New York while everybody was transitioning from Puerto Rico to Austin, Texas. And then once everybody kind of made their way down to Austin, Texas, I joined them from New York. So I just moved here, I don't know, like a week ago. Am I still on? Because I just saw a screen change.
Yeah, I just put you
on
the whole full screen. But
yeah, I wasn't sure what was happening. I'm like, I don't know if I lost these guys. But yeah, man, I just moved down here like a week ago. So, you know, a bunch of little hiccups and things that you always get when you move places. And one of them is my internet. But, you know, we're basically training out of Renzo Gracie Austin at the moment. And we've been training at this other gym, which is actually like, it's like a company that has like a gym in the company that a bunch of different guys are training at called Roca. I think they do like glasses and stuff like that. I'm not that super familiar with them. We've been training there for a little bit too. We've been doing our comp sessions there because it's got a little bit of a bigger space and a wall and stuff, so I could do some of the MMA stuff there. Get some bags and things, you know. The gym at Renzo Austin is a little bit more appropriate, like kind of just for jiu-jitsu. So we do a couple sessions there a day, and then we do the one session at Roca. And that's kind of been our consistent thing. We've been doing like 3 days during the week, and then the weekends we do like 2 sessions.
And yeah, Thanh, I spoke to you a little bit before I hit that record button. You've been changing up a little bit as well. You've been down at Jackson Wink in Albuquerque doing some stuff. Yeah, just tell the viewers why you were doing that. Normally, you're in Louisiana. Yeah,
Louisiana's still home. I do a lot of traveling and training since we have a smaller group of guys that we work with here, and you know, I've always I trained with Ryan for a really long time, so I went out there and met him at Jackson's. The environment was awesome. Training environment was awesome. Getting to talk to coaches and fighters and things like that was always cool, just to get a little insight. And it's always nice to train in a different environment. You know, it stimulates the new opponent senses and stuff like that. So it's always cool. But yeah, training was awesome down there. I'll be back in a few weeks. That's if that says anything. Training was great.
All right. Well, it's been a year since we've seen you, Thanh. A little bit less for you, Garry. But yeah, what's it been like having this extended vacation? So to speak, not a vacation, but just so much time away. Yeah, Thanh, I'll go to you first. You know, has it been frustrating having to sit out because we thought we were going to see this matchup? I think in the summer, it kept getting pushed back.
No. I mean, obviously, I like to stay busy. I'm not 22 anymore. You know what I mean? But yeah, any extra time I get to try my best to prepare for an elite level fighter like Garry, then cool. Like, you know, the more time, the better. And I'm sure he feels the same way. So he gets to settle into where he needs to be and get more reps and more training and more practice on the stuff that we're trying to implement in the cage. So obviously, that's the positive side. The downside of that is I like to stay busy, and I wasn't able to. But, you know, went through a bunch of finger surgeries and some COVID stuff and newborn, so I'm super happy about that. So I did get some time to spend with the fam and to rehab and stuff like that. But yeah, I wish I could call it a vacation, but it wasn't quite that. We're still working, obviously, harder than ever. And yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, could you just tell me a little bit about the injuries? Was that suffered in the last fight when you won the title from Martin Nguyen?
Yep. So I broke 3 bones in my left hand, healed up, good to go, cracking mitts, no problem. And then I messed up something in my right index finger. Thank God we can't do single joint manipulation because that probably wouldn't be pleasant. But other than that, yeah, punching and grappling and I don't even think about it anymore. I guess it's a little bit of I'm kind of so stupid. I ignore it, and I might hurt myself worse. But you know, who cares? We're fighting. We're trying to keep this title, and he's trying to take it. So.
Well, Garry, I think I spoke to Chatri when he was looking to book this in the summer, and he said you also had a couple of injury issues. Is that right? Could you tell us about those?
Yeah, man. I just had some funky stuff happen with my knee, but I'm back on track and good to go. So, same sort of thing. You have your rough sessions and stuff, but we're trying to make this happen. So I'm doing my best to be ready as soon as I possibly can. And I think that December 5th is a good day for that. So I'm super excited to get into it. But yeah, we're kind of both been waiting for each other to dance, so we're finally ready. So it's good.
Yeah. And like Tan said, you had a little bit longer now to prepare for him too. As someone who is still relatively new to MMA, has that been good to just have that extra time to continue working on those areas that, you've wanted to improve on?
Sure, man. I think so. I think, it obviously goes both ways, right? It's like he said, everybody gets the extra time. It's not like one person wasn't, able to do anything during their period of time that they had extra. So, I'm sure he's had more time to work on stuff that, to prepare for me and vice versa. And, I obviously built my confidence on some level. And, similar to the question that you asked him about, getting a little antsy about like getting back in there and stuff, because it's been a while, same sort of thing for me, man. Like, I'd love to have more fights, but, I also, the title's important, and for him, defending the title's important, obviously. So it meant a lot to make sure that we were ready for this fight and to make this fight happen. So, man, if it takes a year to make the title fight happen, I think that's worth it. I think that's a reasonable sacrifice of time for such a monumental event like trying to win a title. So
yeah, there's been a long wait for this one. Has it been frustrating, Tan, having to watch other champions defend their titles, and you just probably wanted to showcase and keep that role going that you were building in one?
For sure. Well, for sure, as far as like wanting to portray the skills and all that good stuff, but it's, you've been doing this for such a long time. I'm sure Garry feels the same way. Like, you don't really get super frustrated with things like that because it's part of the game. Waiting is a part of the game. Anticipation is part of the game. Fighting last minute is part of the game. It's all going to come full circle anyway. So, I try not to get frustrated. I'm human, so it happens. But yeah, like, obviously I want to get in there. It's the whole reason, him and I, and I'm sure everybody else got into the sport is we think we can be the best in the world, and we're trying to prove it. And I'd like to prove it now, but I can't. So we do it December 5th, like it's all good. Yeah. I enjoy martial arts, and you can tell by the way, how Garry competes and trains and all this good stuff. He enjoys martial arts. So it's kind of like, I get to do more of what I like anyway, so who gives a shit? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and training with a guy like Ryan Hall, like you mentioned, probably the perfect person to have in your camp right now when you're preparing for a guy like Garry.
Yeah, I mean, short of cloning Garry and trying to beat him up every day, I guess it's a good option to train with. Whether it's a good clone of who we're trying to face or not, it's just a wonderful training partner. I'm grateful to have him in my corner and in my ear every day, working with ideas on martial arts, helping my striking, helping every bit of me as a human. So I try to return the favor and help him where I can. So it's a great symbiotic relationship, I guess you could say. But it's always awesome training, whether I'm fighting the next guy, the last guy, this guy, it's just always good training. So I can't complain.
And Garry, have you brought in anyone specifically to try and mimic Tan's style, or are you just so confident in what you do that you're not worried about that?
There wasn't like anybody specifically that we looked at and said, I didn't look at a field of athletes or anything like that and say I'm going to bring in some new guy that we've never worked with before because he's very similar to Don's style. But I definitely have training partners out in New York and various places that I've trained with before. And obviously the idea would be to try to get as many guys that can at least on some level replicate some of the things that he does. So, Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm trying to pick and choose my training partners, but I would say that in general, the way that I've done my mixed martial arts training has been with a very small group of people, and it tends to be the same group of people. I don't do a whole lot of specific planning in terms of like making sure somebody has exactly the body type and exactly this and exactly that. At least I haven't up until now. Fortunately, I've had the opportunity to have Andre Fili come out several times because he's wanted to work out for grappling and stuff like that. He's a super high level striker. So I've been really loving having training sessions with him. So I feel like that's just to have a really high caliber guy in the room to work out with, because most of the time I do the majority of my training with just other guys that spar and stuff that aren't like in the UFC or anything like that. It's just training partners that take care of me and know me and know my limitations. I know their limitations, so we take care of each other and we can get training in every day. Our style of training is to spar pretty much every day. So in order to do that, like you need to have like really careful training partners that take care of each other. And that's the majority of what I work with. But even the guys that I work with on a consistent basis, like they try to study some of the stuff that Don does too. And they try to give me a little bit of a look, like somewhat similar to some of his movements and things. But I haven't picked anybody specific. I haven't like flown out Stephen Wonderboy Thompson to to try to get a look at him. That'd probably be the closest example, but he's a little bigger. So,
well, we saw you were able to impose your will pretty much on all of your first few opponents in one, and then you came up against Matsushima and he had some brilliant defense on the ground. Are you expecting similar from Tan if you get it down to the ground?
I would imagine that, especially given the amount of time that's elapsed since we were supposed to face each other, and I'm sure that he saw this fight coming even before we were supposed to face each other, that he's probably done a high degree of work in grappling since he realized that. So I would bet that it's not going to be like an easy task. When we get down to the ground, I'm sure that that's something that he's integrating into his camp. So yeah, absolutely, man. And I mean, even with the Matsushima fight, I mean, a lot of the frustration just came from like, little defensive maneuvers and stuff that made it difficult to finish. And who knows, had he had an opportunity on the feet or vice versa, if it was Thon, has an opportunity on the feet after he defends one of those, jiu-jitsu scrambles or whatever the case may be. I mean, that's all it takes, one kick, one punch, whatever the case may be. So it's definitely something to look out for, but I'm trying to improve my jiu-jitsu every day too, even though it's already like my strong suit. So hopefully I'll still be able to pose a threat regardless.
And Tan, do you think Garry can get it down to the ground there? I mean, are you confident you can keep it standing, which is obviously your wheelhouse, and we saw how devastating you are when you won this belt and you knocked out Martin?
I'm gonna do my damnedest to try, you know what I mean? But obviously his game plans to touch me up on the feet and then put me down and do what he does best. And my game plan would be the opposite of that. So, I think it falls into the traditional grappler versus striker matchup, except unlike the old days, I guess you could say, I've spent a lot of time grappling. He spent a lot of time striking. You can see it improve fight after fight. So it's going to be different than those fights, but it's going to give you a little bit of that like nostalgic feel of, hey, grappler guy versus striker guy. And let's see kind of what happens there. If he stands on the feet for 10 seconds, is he going to get knocked out? Probably not. If he takes me down and we're on the ground for 10 seconds at the end of the round, am I going to get choked? Hopefully not. We're working on that. So I think it's going to be a back and forth fight, and you're going to see some things maybe you haven't seen in our matchups with previous opponents before. Let's say that. And
we do know whoever wins this fight is going to now fight Kim Jae Woong, because Kim knocked out Martin Nguyen in the first round a couple of weeks ago. So, yeah, I'll ask you both, Tan, were you surprised by that result?
No, I was very interested in that fight, though, because Kim is a heavy hitter, but Martin took a lot of damage in the fights, even with me, even though he didn't go down early. The punches that did land, he took on a great spot on the head, but the force is still there. The impact is still there, whether it happened to hit the button or not. So it was interesting to see him take that short little cross, very similar to how he turned into the punch that I hit him with. I didn't hit him with a very hard punch, but it put him down. It happened to be good timing and good placement, and I think Kim did the same thing. So I was very interested in that matchup to see something like that, to see how his chin would hold up, because I've hit a lot of people and I've never broken my hands. I hit this man hard, and obviously I broke my hands. But it was interesting to kind of pay attention to that. But watching Kim fight and seeing the way he approached the game is interesting. It's very dangerous, very confident, and I think he's a good fighter. I think he's, if we make it past Garry, which we're working on that, I think that's going to be a really fun matchup if that comes to fruition.
Yeah, and Garry, what did you think of that fight? And is it kind of strange to know if you win the title here, you've already got someone else lined up to defend it against?
Yeah, so I only got to see the highlights of that fight. So I did see Martin got knocked out. I had mentioned it to my coach. I didn't actually watch the whole fight. I think it happened within like 3 minutes. It was just fairly quick. I wasn't sure if it was something. Like a repeated error that Martin was making, or if it was one of those things where it's just like, you get caught with a shot or something. Even though I don't like to have that be to suggest that that's the reason, right? You always want to say it's like due to somebody's skill. But regardless, I mean, Martin's reputation in terms of all of the fights that he has had against very difficult opponents, I think speaks for itself in the sense that, like, he doesn't usually just get caught with lucky shots and just go down. Like, usually if somebody's causing trouble, they're very, very good. That just goes to show how tough Kim is. To be honest, I haven't done a ton of research. I've been so focused. I mean, this fight, like we have mentioned multiple, supposed to happen for so long that I've been very short-sighted in my studies as of late. I mean, for the most part, I'm mostly focusing on Thon. So I haven't really watched a whole lot of Kim's fights and to see what he can do. But I mean, that was a really impressive victory he had over Martin. It's just going to be the next step. If that's who's waiting for me, that's who's waiting for me. And obviously he's going to be a really tough opponent, because I look at Martin as an extremely tough opponent. And as somebody that I still believe is pretty much guaranteed to have to fight at some point in the future, regardless of what happens in this fight.
Yeah, and Tan, you had expressed an interest in also challenging Christian Lee. What do you make of his title loss to Rae Yoon, Kim's compatriot? It was a bit of a shock, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was interesting to watch. I kind of have to agree with Christian and his sister. All the details they were talking about, the scoring, they broke it down and talked about the effect of striking, the effect of grappling, the threats to finish the fight, as far as a full decision goes, and not basing it off a round-by-round performance. I mean, it was I'm going to have to agree with them. I don't think is as extremely one-sided as they think, obviously. But I think, Christian being dropped wasn't as big of a shot as Oak getting dropped, and then Christian popped right back up and started wrestling. Oak, had to fight off some submission threats, and then I think a little bit of the defensive posture that Christian took, moving backwards, affected that because he was tired mid-fight. But the punches were mostly dinging off his forearms in that MMA like shell position, and I don't think they were doing a ton of damage. So, ring control and aggression has a little bit to do, but that's down the list as far as damage, striking effectiveness, grappling effectiveness, things like that. So I'm gonna have to agree with them, and I think he pulled it off.
All right, and I mean, Garry, if it goes 5 rounds, are you worried about that old saying, never leave it in the hands of the judges? Are you definitely looking for the finish? Because we've seen a couple of controversies recently now with this global rule setting one.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, I think anytime you make it to the end of the fight and there isn't a finish, you never really know what's going to happen. Whether it's this rule set or whether you're using, UFC's rule set or whatever the case may be. I mean, people make, judges' decisions that are very suspect. You never really know. And that's just how it has to go. I mean, we can't fight forever. So we place a time limit on it. And then at some point we got to put it in somebody's hands to decide who wins this thing. Yeah, hopefully that doesn't happen, one way or the other. I'm going to try to look to win the fight, and that's the surest way to make sure that you win, right? So obviously when in pursuit of trying the fight, you take a little bit more risk, and that always happens anytime you're attacking somebody. But I think it's a risk worth taking for multiple reasons. One, obviously, because now it's in your hands. And two, because I think it just makes for a better fight in general, and I think that's a piece of this sometimes that gets lost. I'm not referring to that fight that you guys are referring to or anything like that, but I think that's a piece of this that gets lost sometimes when guys are fighting, and it's a really tough game. And like a lot of times it's, we just want to walk out of there like healthy and alive. But at the same time, like, I would love to put on, performances for people that I'm proud of and that people can watch and have a great time watching. And I think the best performances come out of two guys that are really trying to finish each other, regardless of whether that be striking, grappling, whatever the case may be. It will be my first time doing a 5-round fight. And, for sure that's a little nerve-wracking. It's a different feel, going for that amount of time. In some ways, I feel as though it could favor me. In other ways, possibly not. We'll see what happens when I actually get in there. I've thankfully got a couple tastes of 3 rounds while I was on my way up. So at the very least, I had some longer fights, and it wasn't like I just submitted everybody in the first 5 seconds of every first round. So I feel ready for it now.
There has been a rise again in Singapore of COVID cases. Tan, are you worried, guys, that this could be derailed again? Or have they confided in you and said it's happening?
Please don't do it to me.
Jinxed it. Sorry.
Yeah, like obviously it's always a concern. Even here at home, being stingy with who you train with and who you hang around and all that. Just I'm doing as much as I can think of to try to make sure I'm in a little training bubble and living my life in this little bubble so I can not be exposed. And and then we have the plane ride, and then we have Singapore itself. So they did such a good job before containing and making sure there was no exposure. So I'm relying on that, and hopefully you didn't just jinx this, because we're both going to come behind you.
Knock on wood. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm gonna finish it here. I gotta ask you guys if you can give some kind of prediction. Then we'll go to Tan first. How do you see this fight going?
Oh, well, I know y'all talked about going to the judges. This thing ain't going to the judges. Garry, you gonna choke me, tap me, or I'm knocking you out, or something. Something's gonna happen. We're gonna fuck each other up, and I'm super excited.
And same question to you, Garry. How do you see this ending?
Yeah, man, I agree. I don't see it going the full 5 rounds either. I think due to the stress that puts on people, especially considering I look at both of us as people who are going to look to try to finish fights. I just see that the 5 rounds, meaning that one of us at the very least is going to get exhausted from the other's attacks and either have to lose by TKO, knockout, or submission. Obviously, I believe that that's going to be in my favor. Haven't had any knockout victories yet, so I would love to see that. But tough opponent to make that happen too. Yeah, man, I'm probably looking for the submission, and that's the way that I would usually see this. But
okay, I can't wait to see it, and plenty of respect between you guys, obviously. So thank you very much for doing this again, and yeah, knock on wood, I haven't jinxed that there. So we'll see you in Singapore, December 5th, One Championships 10th anniversary show 1X. Thank you, Tanley. Thank you, Garry Tonon. Thank you so much.
No, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Have a good one.
All right,
thanks, guys.
See you guys.